Um, Training camp battle that you're most looking forward to in this summer with the Niners, and then I got one last one for you on Brandon Ayuk.
Cornerback. I love the cornerback situation because Renardo Green is going to be in there. Larry, you got to forgive me. It's been a long day. I was up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Who the hell is the guy from the Saints that they got?
Isaac Yiadom.
Isaac Yiadom. Thank you. Isaac Yiadom has been out there and has looked magnificent. You have 4 starting caliber cornerbacks on this team for 3 spots. And I know that, one of them is nickel with Diamador Lenore, but with Mooney Ward, Yiadom, and then I will take that, Mark Graves. Thank you. I probably look like him.
Yeah, it sound like fun.
Children of the night. But you're big on the kid from South Alabama, or sorry, who was the
South Alabama, Darrell Luter Jr.
Luter.
Yeah,
he
looks phenomenal.
Totally.
Big,
I like
strong,
Sammy Womack's
fast, dominating
energy. And by the way, like Ambry Thomas, we've all crapped on Ambry Thomas, but Ambry Thomas should probably be on an NFL roster as a depth guy. And the truth of the matter is they're going to have to cut one of them at the minimum going into the season because that's just too many quarterbacks. And I'm really interested to see how that all shakes out because there's a world in which Yiadom, again, who has looked fantastic, doesn't start because Renardo Green is that good. There's a world in which the writing's on the wall that Yiadom is only holding the job for as long as he doesn't screw up, which is a pretty terrible spot to be in as a corner. There is a chance that the 49ers go into the season with the best cornerback crew in the NFC this season. Forgive me, I'm messing up on Yiadom's name, so clearly I'm not up and up on the general cornerbacks across the league. But, I mean, a position of clear weakness in general under Kyle Shanahan is now arguably, with wide receiver also being in consideration, the deepest position this team has. And I'm really interested to see how that all shakes out because it also is very informative for 2025. I mean, we could, much like Deebo Samuel's got the writing on the wall for him this year because of the depth in the wide receiver room, writing could be on the wall for Mooney Ward as well. If these other guys come out here and just totally kick ass in training camp the way that they kicked ass in mini camp and have kicked ass in practices, previous years. So I'm really interested to see what happens there.
Yeah, for me, it's right guard. I want to see Pooney against Burford, against Feliciano, against, and the interior spots too. Brendel, against Drake Nugent, against Kingston, against Nick Sakel, against, all the different options they have at center, and they got a bunch of them. So to me, it's those interior spots, center and right guard. I'd like to see some turnover, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some new faces there. I think, they were 30 or 28th in the NFL in the interior pass blocking last year. And you can't ignore that. You got to look at those numbers. I think you got to try to upgrade. I like the idea of Nugent at center and Pooney at right guard, or maybe Nugent at center and a combination of Pooney and Burford sharing right guard again. That that would not be bad, but I'd like to see a little bit more thump and a little bit more juice and a little bit more pop, a little bit more athleticism in the Niner offensive line. I feel like they're a little under explosive, and the more athletic defensive lines kind of work them.
How do you feel about Banks going into this season? Because we've kept our eye on right guard and talked about right guard so much. It feels as if Banks, who I didn't feel like made any real massive step forward. I feel like he's winning by default in a lot of senses at left guard in terms of, holding on to that job. How do you feel about Banks right now?
Well, I love Banks. I mean, I think Banks is a tremendous prospect. I also didn't mention Ben Barch. Invader 49er says Ben Barch, 315 pounds, he could win the center job. That's true. And he was running with the ones at center. I like it. I like Banks. This is the thing with Banks. If Banks can get through this year without having another recurrence of the concussions, then I think he gets a long-term deal for decent money. But if he's an El Cerrito guy, he's a Bay Area kid, he's a leader, he's tough.
It sounds like Farhan logic. Oh, he's local. Let's give him a new deal.
But he walks around at 320 pounds, so he's not one of these guys that's going to have to, lift weights to get to 320. And then, those guys usually play longer when your natural walk around weight is your playing weight or really close to your playing weight. That's good.
Yeah.
So I like Banks a lot, but to me, I think if he suffers another, this is where the NFL's ruthless, but if he suffers another couple concussions and misses, 3, 4, 5 games with concussions, I think they hedge their bet and move down the road and let him walk at the end of the year. Now, if he can get through this year and really elevate and play his best year ever and not, miss a bunch of time with concussions, then I do think there's going to be money there to sign him. And I think they'd like to get him signed.
Yeah, no, I just, it's somebody who was talked about a lot a couple of years ago. And it might just be me not paying that much attention, kind of out of sight, out of mind. I feel like we've really honed in on Burford, and I get it because it's wildly evident when he messes up. But I never felt like there was that much of a disparity between the two of them. Banks just feels more professional. And yet here's Burford having to fight off 2 guys for a job, whereas Banks is just in there every day. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just noting it's interesting and maybe something I'll keep an eye on here in camp, because the Niners do have, well, maybe they don't have the top end guys. They don't have those star players that you want outside of 71. There is some depth there. There are some pieces that you can move around and it could make it interesting. And if you do, if the 49ers agree with you, if Chris Foerster agrees with you and change is imminent, I think there's a couple of very fascinating combinations they could go with some of the guys that they have. And a lot of them are healthy for the first time, really, for them all at the same time. So we could have a pretty interesting training camp with that collective.
What I like most about Banks is that I watch him every week, and I rarely, if ever, see him truly anchored and bull rushed. He anchors against pretty well. He doesn't get moved when he sets his feet. You're not bull rushing him. Now you might speed rush him, but you're not going to bull rush him.
Yeah.
And I also think he's benefited a lot from playing next to Trent. Let's be honest. I mean, I think it's way tougher to play right guard next to Colton than it is to play left guard next to Trent Williams.
I mean, not just Colton. You're also getting, you also got Brendel in the middle there, and he's a guy who you just want to line up on in between their shoulders. Here we go. I mean, I like Brendel's smarts. I think that it's very valuable to have somebody like that because he handles all the coverages. Brock isn't dealing with that crap at the line of scrimmage, and I don't think that's a problem at all. And that's why the Nuge is so intriguing to us, because we know he's smart and we know he can handle stuff like that. Or at least we've heard from people who don't lie about stuff like that, that's the case. We'll find out soon enough. I do think that that's more valuable than people lend it. But you watch the tape and you're like, oh, this guy's average at best is the nice way of putting it. And it's a real problem when you have a guy with some pretty clear liabilities to your right, a guy with some pretty clear liabilities to your left. And by the way, you got a couple of clear liabilities. It makes things a little hairy in terms of locking down a spot. Whereas, bless him, Banks can look to his left and say, oh, that might be the best guy to ever do it. And he's still doing it at a very high level.
The other training camp battle I'm really eager to see is along the defensive line. Just from the standpoint of, I like the guys at the back end there. I like Evan Anderson, and I like what I saw of Shaquille Brown. Shaquille Brown is big.
I agree with you on Shaquille.
Powerful, explosive, and athletic. And Evan Anderson is definitely strong and has got his weight in check. They're sitting currently behind Kalia Davis and T.Y. McGill. Now, I think there's a very good chance that, it's Malik Collins, it's Javon Hargrave, it's Kevin Givens, it's Jordan Elliott. You're going to have one more defensive tackle probably in your on your group. And then it's like, to me, it's probably either Shaquille Brown or Evan Anderson over T.Y. McGill or Kalia Davis. But I think that battle is going to be really, really fun to watch because I like what I've seen from Brown and Anderson. And
we can go down the line because I'm fascinated to find out who's going to be the backup free safety for this team.
Yeah. Who's the starter?
I mean, Jair Brown's going to start there. I feel like that's
start for sure.
At free. But I mean, one, I'd love
George Odom's running with the twos right now.
Yeah, and if they want to try George Odom in a true free safety cover 3 role, they can go ahead and try that. I think that a lot of other teams would be thrilled with that update.
He's a special teamer.
He's a linebacker.
Yeah, I mean, he's a special team guy.
I'll tell you this:
he's
the
a great
49ers they're loaded at strong safety. I mean, they go 3 deep at strong safety, Larry. And here I thought that position was being phased out, but here we are. It's going to be. I think off-ball linebacker is a really interesting battle going in. I know that you got a veteran in there, but you as much as anybody are high on some of the young guys, the guys that they've kept in that system over the years, and then
Fred Warner talked up D. Winters. I really love Jalen Graham. I think both those guys are going to give Devondre Campbell a run. And I'll tell you, the free safety thing's really interesting because they're so deep at corner that is it possible that they go with Renardo Green at free safety?
I mean, not as a starter, but in a pinch. And then you're thinking to yourself, is that something? Do you want to limit his abilities? Or do you want to limit his time at corner, which is unquestionably his best position? I mean, he has the ability to start today and be damn good, at least from what I saw. And again,
I agree.
It's OTAs. There's no pads, but like he didn't lack for physicality. I mean, the only knock on this guy is that he gets a little handsy. I seem to remember a guy who wore 25 who had the same knock and was pretty damn good for the 49ers too. And by the way, they want to go back to this cover 3. They want to recreate the Legion of Boom Seahawks. They feel like that's the foundation, that's their identity. I mean, Renardo Green is such a perfect fit for that. And I knew that coming in, it was really encouraging. I mean, he took it to a whole other level in just rookie mini camp, OTAs and mini camp. One other spot that I'm really wide receiver, I think there's a lot of snaps that are up for grabs there. But another spot that's really interesting for me is like, maybe it's even specific. What are they going to do with Yetur Gross-Matos? Because you see
I think he's going to start at defensive end opposite Bosa on first and second down.
I'm fascinated to see how they use him because I also think that he could slide in and maybe you take Collins off the field on third down and you go with Gross-Matos in the middle. He might be a 3-down player for this team. I need to see it in training. I need to see it with pads. We don't know squat, but I'll tell you this. There aren't a lot of dudes out there on a football field that look like him. Now, there's not a lot of dudes on a baseball field that look like Jorge Soler, and look where that's got the Giants. You can only go so far, the Fabio mindset, but like this dude looks like he was built by the gods to play defensive line and slide inside and outside. I mean, he is a specimen. And obviously he's on the 49ers because it didn't totally work out in Carolina. So I'm not coming to tell you he's the next coming of anything. But I really want to see what he does when dudes can punch him in the mouth a couple of times and see how he responds to that. Because against air and shorts, he looks good.